These two words, classification and categorization, are often used to describe several things at once. As verbs, they show how organizations decide what set of information security controls are needed to preserve and protect the various information assets of an organization. As nouns, they are the labels assigned to those assets to concisely reflect the types of security controls required to achieve the right levels of protection. Unfortunately, the information security profession lacks a consistent and coherent definition of either of these words, even though it does seem to agree on what these processes need to accomplish. Several different schools of thought or traditions of use have inadvertently created some of this confusion. Many nations' military and national security communities use classification to describe the assignment of security labels, such as secret, top secret, and even for official use only, to information assets. Within these communities, long-established policies, procedures, and traditions emphasize the confidentiality of information over almost any other consideration. Classified information, almost by definition, is information that must first be kept from unauthorized disclosure. Other information security attributes, such as availability, integrity, or non-repudiation, are of course important, but they are achieved as they serve the need for confidentiality. Other national and regional government policies use categorization to describe the assignment of security labels, such as personal health information, trade secret, or proprietary, usually as part of implementing laws and regulations for various government programs. Preferences for terminology within different communities also compounds this confusion. Comparing publications by NIST or other U.S. agencies with ISO, IEC, or other nation standards bodies reveals many instances of very similar ideas being described in very different terms. Across the private sector, at least that part of it that does not do business with national governments, their militaries or other intelligence and security communities, there is little common agreement on what to call this security labeling process. It is also very important to realize that for decades, most of the information security conversation about classification and categorization has focused almost exclusively on just the three attributes of the CIA triad. This has the unfortunate consequence of downplaying or ignoring vital business and government security needs for safety, privacy, authenticity of data, commands, and messages, and non-repudiation. One way to cut through this fog is to focus attention on the creating, reading, updating, and deleting, CRUD, actions of an information asset or the data sets and data items it contains. Creating, updating, and deleting data items or data sets have direct bearing on the integrity, availability, authenticity, and even the non-reputability of that data. Confidentiality, of course, requires control over which processes and people can read the information, and thereby have the ability to retain it in internal memory, copy it, or send it elsewhere. Let's consider some examples. Hurricane forecasting and evacuation alerting processes publish the raw data and the forecasts generated from that data. The believability of the forecasts depends upon the weather agency's transparency regarding their processes, data, the models that they use, and how they make decisions to issue weather alerts and evacuation notices. Nothing is confidential, but everything must be protected so that its availability, integrity, and authenticity is assured. Non-repudiation is also critical to assert and protect. Imagine the effect on public confidence if a National Weather Service could attempt to deny issuing an evacuation or safe to return warning to the public. Another example is postal mail contents and envelope data. In most jurisdictions, the address information for sender and recipient on the outside of the envelope or parcel is considered public data, or at least non-private, while the contents of the envelope or package itself are considered private. Postal systems take reasonable and prudent means to protect the integrity of the envelope data, but not its confidentiality. Confidentiality of the contents is assured to the degree that the Postal Service does not deliver it to an incorrect addressee. As a result, registered mail services can only attest that an envelope was sent and received, but can say nothing about the contents of that envelope. Where this brings us to is making an impact assessment, which is central to risk management. Before any labels can be attached to sets of data that indicate its sensitivity or handling requirements, the impact or loss to the organization needs to be assessed. This is our first definition. Classification is the process of recognizing the impacts to the organization if its information suffers any security compromise to its confidentiality, integrity, availability, non-repudiation, authenticity, privacy, or safety-related characteristics. Classifications are derived from the compliance mandates the organization must operate within, whether these be law, regulation, contract-specified standards, or other business expectations. One classification might indicate minor may disrupt some processes, while a more extreme one might be grave, could lead to loss of life or threaten ongoing existence of the organization. You'll note that a good impact statement links a summary term with a description. These descriptions should reflect the ways in which the organization has chosen or been mandated to characterize and manage risks. Note that a classification is not a label. Security labels are part of implementing controls to protect classified information. The immediate benefit of classification is that it can lead to more efficient design and implementation of security processes if we can treat the protection needs for all similarly classified information with the same control strategy. This is our second definition. Categorization is the process of grouping sets of data, information, or knowledge that have comparable sensitivities, impact or loss ratings, and have similar security needs mandated by law, contracts, or other compliance regimes. These definitions are as directly applicable to small and medium-sized enterprises or businesses, SMEs or SMBs, as they are to defense contractors, government agencies, and major globe-spanning enterprises in the private sector. While they are consistent with NIST Special Publication 800-60R1, FIPS 199, GDPR, and many ISO/IEC standards, their benefit to the organization does not depend upon using those as compliance frameworks. Instead, the benefit starts from flowing down from the compliance regimes that establish the boundaries within which the organization must operate. With these definitions in hand, the organization can then go on to create the control processes, such as policies and security baselines, as part of implementing their security programs. Different organizations and countries have different labels. Many such sensitivity level examples can be found in various security blogs, which all tend to suggest the use of 3 or 4 levels of information sensitivity from highest to lowest, making sure you choose the best one that suits your organization. Sensitivity levels and labels capture in 1 or 2 words a simple, easy to recognize warning statement as to the possible harm that could come to the organization if the data is compromised in any way. Note that sensitivity can embrace both classification and categorization concerns. Many such sensitivity level examples can be found in various security blogs, which all tend to suggest the use of 3 or 4 levels of information sensitivity from highest to lowest. Compromise of data with this sensitivity label of highly restricted could possibly put the organization's future existence at risk. Compromise of this data could lead to substantial loss of life, injury, or property damage, and the litigation and claims that would follow. In contrast, data such as unrestricted public data is already published, so no harm can come from further dissemination or disclosure. The Center for Internet Security, for example, offers 3 levels of sensitive, business confidential, and public as a way of simplifying, classifying low, medium, and high levels. We have discussed data sensitivity levels and labels. Now, let us move on to data categorization levels. They are often used to reflect the source or nature of the security requirements that dictate their use. These often do not fit neatly into a hierarchy of most damaging to least damaging, as sensitivity concerns do. For example, concerns such as human safety, equipment and property safety, and the protection of personally identifiable information, PII, would be categorized as critical, as compromises to these areas could lead to physical property or systems being damaged, or in the case of human safety, injury or loss of life. Data, including private, proprietary, compliance, and time-critical data, can also be categorized. Private data, as a category, would be information that the organization has agreed internally or with another party to keep private or to limit the distribution, dissemination, and use of. Proprietary data, as a category, would be information regarding the organization's internal business logic, processes, decisions, or criteria for decision making. Compliance data, as a category or as a set of categories, could be any data that has special handling and protection requirements defined by law, regulation, or contract. And finally, time-critical data as a category would include information which, if compromised or delayed, could cause a significant business or organizational activity to fail or be canceled or postponed. In some organizations, further categorization labels may be needed to explicitly and clearly separate data relating to individual clients, projects, or to individual compliance requirements. FERPA and HIPAA, for example, might be appropriate category labels and may be needed to make clear the handling requirements for family educational data or healthcare information. Any given data or information asset can have multiple labels, such as human safety critical, HIPAA highly restricted. Other than the obvious benefit of protecting assets based on value, there are other potential benefits that can be realized by using asset classification and categorization systems. These benefits include awareness among employees and customers of the organization's commitment to protect information, identification of critical and sensitive information, identification of vulnerability to modification, enable focus on integrity controls, sensitivity to the need to protect valuable information, understanding the value of information, meeting legal requirements.